The black of my eyes was never just a color. It was an enigma, an open door to worlds unseen and emotions unspoken. I can't remember a time when my eyes didn't stand out. From the day I was born, people would comment on them, often with a mix of awe and confusion. Look at those eyes, so deep, so dark. They're like the night itself.
I grew up surrounded by questions. Some curious, some skeptical, but all intense. My mother always smiled and said, "Your eyes are a gift." But what was this gift? What did the blackness mean? It felt like a mystery that no one had the answers to, not even me. As a child, I would often stare at my reflection for hours, fascinated by the depth of my gaze. The blackness seemed to stretch beyond my pupils, absorbing everything in its path: light, color, emotion. It was as if the world around me disappeared when I focused too hard on my own reflection. I never understood what people meant when they said my eyes were mesmerizing, but the older I grew, the more I realized that they held something powerful, something that others felt. Even if they couldn't explain it, my teenage years were marked by an increasing awareness of the way people looked at me. It wasn't just the usual admiration, it was something more intense, like a magnetic pull. I couldn't escape the feeling that people were drawn to me, not because of who I was, but because of the blackness in my eyes. It was as though my gaze held secrets, dark truths that they longed to uncover. But no matter how hard they tried, no one could seem to decipher them. I began to withdraw from the world, seeking comfort in solitude. The more I retreated, the more I realized that the black of my eyes wasn't just a physical trait. It was a mirror. It reflected my soul, my heart, and my hidden thoughts. I started to see that my eyes were a reflection of everything I had been through, every struggle I faced, every fear I'd held close. There was pain in them, quiet, almost invisible, but unmistakable. And yet, there was something else too, a quiet strength, a sense of survival. It was as if my eyes had seen things that others couldn't possibly imagine. I remember one particular day in high school when a teacher, Mr. Collins, asked me to stay after class. "I've noticed something about you," he said, studying me with his kind, gray eyes. "Your eyes, they're like nothing I've ever seen before. It's as though they're full of stories, but you never tell them." I was startled by his observation. No one had ever put it into words quite like that before. His words lingered in my mind for days. The blackness in my eyes wasn't just a feature, it was a story waiting to be told, and yet, I had never shared it with anyone. The weight of that realization hung heavy on me. As I moved through adulthood, I learned that the blackness in my eyes had become a part of me, a part of who I was and how I interacted with the world. People would tell me that they could see a certain intensity when they looked into my eyes, something that made them feel like they were being understood, even if I didn't say a word. There were those who found my gaze unsettling, too, as though it pierced through them, reading their every thought. But it wasn't intentional. It was just the way my eyes were, a reflection of my inner world. Yet, as I grew more confident, I started to understand that the black of my eyes was more than just a physical trait. It was a gift. It was a window into the complexities of life, a symbol of resilience and strength. My eyes had seen the dark times, the moments of loneliness, of heartbreak, and despair. But they had also seen the light, moments of joy, hope, and love. They had witnessed both the worst and the best of the human experience, and through it all, they had survived. As I became an adult, I began to share my story with others. I realized that the blackness in my eyes was not something to hide or be ashamed of. It was a part of me, just as much as my thoughts, my emotions, and my experiences. My eyes had been through the fire, and they had come out stronger. They had been my silent companion through everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. They had borne witness to my journey, and now, they were ready to share their story with the world. One evening, I stood before a mirror, staring deep into my own eyes, the blackness reflecting back at me. I saw all of my fears, all of my joys, all of my struggles and triumphs. But I also saw something new. I saw acceptance. For the first time, I truly understood what the blackness of my eyes meant. It wasn't just a feature. It wasn't just an enigma. It was my story. A story that had been written in silence, in shadows, but one that now, I was ready to speak. And so, I spoke. I began sharing my experiences with others, letting my eyes tell the stories they had carried all these years. And in doing so, I realized that my eyes weren't just mirrors to my own soul. They were mirrors to the souls of others. When people looked into them, they didn't just see the blackness. They saw themselves. They saw their own fears, their own hopes, their own stories.